Paymetric Solutions for automated payment processing and PCI compliance in SAP. Before we get started, I'd like to go over some logistical information with you. Today's webinar will be 60 minutes in length. Everyone is on mute during today's presentation. To ask questions, please use the chat or the questions subpanel, and these questions will be addressed during the last 15 minutes of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be available on the Paymetric website over the next couple of weeks. A link to this recording and a PDF version of the presentation will also be sent to you. At this time, I would like to introduce today's speakers. We have Susie Rowley, AFS SD Configuration Analyst with Fossil Inc., and Eric Bushman, VP Solutions Engineering with Paymetric Inc. Eric, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. And quickly again, here's the list of speakers. So again, Susie and myself will be presenting to you today. We're very excited to have Susie join us from Fossil to give us some background on their implementation, especially from the perspective of an apparel and footwear solutions customer. So here's the agenda that we're going to follow today. We're going to go through some quick company backgrounds and then talk about the business case that Fossil had for implementing the acceptance of payment cards. Talk about their implementation goals, the solutions and overview benefits, and some of their key learnings and the results of their implementation as a whole. We're going to talk about some of their goals for future functionality and ongoing challenges that they're having, and then talk about why they chose Paymetric and why other companies should look at Paymetric as their solution provider for acceptance of payments in SAP. So a little background about Paymetric. We were founded in 1998. We have about 75 employees currently. We are a privately held company and have backing from two different venture capital companies, Austin Ventures and Palomar. We're rapidly approaching 500 enterprise customers, and we listed down here some of the customers that we have today who are AFS customers, similar to Fossil. So you can see those: Oakley, Under Armour, K&G, Burton, Vera Bradley, Movado, Cutter & Buck, Ballet Makers, and of course Fossil. And those are some of the companies that are using our solution with SAP's AFS solution. Now, Paymetric has a long and proud history as an SAP partner. We're very proud to have won the Pinnacle Award from SAP 3 times. Most recently in 2009 for our tokenization solution, which extracts the credit card number out of an SAP system and replaces that with a surrogate value known as a token, so that you're not storing any encrypted or any raw data in your SAP database. So just a quick slide to give you some feel for our partnership with SAP. Again, we're most proud of the Pinnacle Awards that we've been given by SAP for developing new features, new functionality within the SAP application. We're also proud of several of the other awards that we've won, most notably the TAG Top 40 Innovative Company Awards that we've received for the last 3 years running. You can see some other awards at the bottom. Suffice it to say, the industry is recognizing the solutions that Paymetric is developing and deploying, in which our customers are using as innovative solutions. We mentioned some of the AFS customers that we have, but this slide is just to give you a feel for companies in other areas, other industries that are using Paymetric solutions. And we show this slide not only to let you see some of the premier names of companies that are using our solution, but also to point out that our solutions are used across markets and industries and geographies. There's not a particular segment or type of customer that we appeal to. Any company that is accepting credit cards as a form of payment from their customers has a potential of using Paymetric solutions. So you'll see companies in the consumer products area, in health services and life sciences. You'll see companies in wholesale distribution. It really doesn't matter what the industry is that a company is in, so long as they need to accept electronic payment from their customers, typically a credit card, then Paymetric has solutions that will allow that customer to accept those forms of payment from their customers, and particularly within SAP, as we'll be talking about today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Susie for a moment so she can give us an overview on Fossil.
Hi everyone, this is Susie Raleigh with Fossil, and I want to give you a little bit of background about our company. We were founded in April '84 as Overseas Product International, and watches was just one of the initial things we started to do, and when they took off we decided to just concentrate on Fossil, and we incorporated as Fossil in 1991. We are a global retailer specializing in design and marketing and manufacturing and merchandising, a specific kind of fashion lifestyle. We call it vintage, and we want to reflect a certain kind of image to our customers and for them to be comfortable with our apparel and accessories. We have over 400 of our own retail stores worldwide, and we have a very strong e-com business worldwide. We keep expanding that on a monthly basis, it seems, because we have, besides our Fossil brands and the ones we own like Michelle and now Scoggin, we also are licensed to make Armani and Michael Kors, Marc Jacobs, and Burberry. So we have a lot of different kinds of watches available to all kinds of customers from low end to high end. And our corporate headquarters are located here in Richardson, Texas, what is commonly called the High Five area, close to where TI is located. And we have been publicly held since 1993 on the NASDAQ. We're not on the New York Stock Exchange. We're on NASDAQ as FOSL. We picked Paymetric. We've been a Paymetric customer live since 2010. We selected Paymetric from 3 candidates that we were referred to by our PCI auditors because we were not PCI compliant, and we had Visa breathing down our necks to become PCI compliant with the threat of a $10,000 a day fine. So we had to get a solution. So that's why we picked Paymetric. We went live with it using all the functionality in September of 2010. We did the DI tokenizer in January 2010. We're on SAP ECC 6.0 and AFS 6.5. We don't have any, as it says, all card not present. Our card usage or information is coming from our customers either via a call or a fax or a paper, and anything that has any credit card information has to be securely taken care of. So we're working on other solutions to handle that right now, but we have a very strict, secure process right now to keep that information locked up and safe, so we remain PCI compliant. Paymetric says we're doing like 10,000 transactions per month. I'm going to rely on them for their accuracy. And we're using, for the U.S. transactions, we're using First Data North, and we're using Moneris for our Canadian customers. And in addition to like processing the credit cards, we also use reporting that they provide, and we do open and direct AR, which helps our accounts receivable collect monies on Net 30 customers or get prepayments on customers that we need to take prepayments from. So it is a very good system. I would highly recommend it. And the RXI Secure on-demand tokenization is, I would say, if it's not hack-proof, it's 99.9% hack-proof. It's far better than encryption. It would take a genius better than Einstein to figure out how to break the code on these tokens.
All right, and Susie, real quick, I wanted to add, just in case anyone's unfamiliar with the term PCI, because we didn't define it here, PCI compliance or PCI DSS, different phrases or terms you may hear, refer to the payment card industry data security standards. And in a nutshell, what those are regulations or requirements that each merchant who accepts credit cards as a form of payment is required to put in place within either their systems or within their company environment as a whole. So quite often we'll get the question, Paymetric will receive the question, if we implement your tokenization, does that mean that we're automatically PCI compliant and there's nothing more for us to do? And unfortunately the answer is no, because there are requirements that Paymetric simply can't help a merchant address, such as ensuring that if you do get a fax with a credit card number on it, that you're either securing or destroying that piece of paper once you've entered the order into your system, or things such as making sure that you have a segregation of duties among your employee base. So employees who are able to post credits aren't also able to place orders, things of that nature. But PCI is simply a reference to the requirements that the brands, Visa and MasterCard and Amex and Discover, have placed upon merchants who accept forms of payment to try and secure not only their systems but their business processes, et cetera, from making sure that the customer payment data is safe and secure. All right, so let me switch us to the next slide here, Susie. There you go. Oops. There you go.
Okay, so our big issue, as I stated previously, was we were not PCI compliant, and we were going to get $10,000 a day. Visa had been threatening us and threatening us and threatening us that if we didn't do something to fix this, because they were concerned about, you know, anybody breaking in, as any company would be concerned, and getting your data from your customers, which is the same as identity theft, pretty much. So we had to become PCI compliant. So we started working on this solution in 2009. And the problem was we needed an automated payment processing solution because it was taking our people in accounts receivable. Their process was, it was monstrous, because they would have to get the information from the sales rep or the customer. They would have to then get the approval from the bank. They would have to manually process it, either directly in First Data on a website they have, or some other means. We would have card machines here as well. So we would have to get the authorization, then we would have to make sure that all the information about that credit card was locked up in a fireproof, secure, locked filing cabinet so no one could get access to it. It took our accounts receivable cash application team hours or days to reconcile those payments to the actual debits for the credit cards, because they would have to go to the bank and get the payment, and then they would have to go to another website to see the details on how much of that payment was this card and how much was that card, et cetera, et cetera. So it was just a monstrous ordeal for all of them. So this took care of so many of those issues, because now whenever they are placing the order, the sales rep or the person in our customer care team or sales support team can go in, select the payment card on the order, and when they go to save it, they will know if it's approved or declined immediately. If it's declined, then they can contact the customer and let them know they need another card, or do they have any other payment method. So that speeds that up. It speeds up our shipping because we get all that approved faster, so we can ship our orders faster. It helps so much on the back end, because now with RXI Pay, which is the back end portion of the payment process, that's where all the information for all those payments is held, and the authorized personnel in the Treasury team and cash application go in there and can match up those very quickly. Instead of it taking hours and or days, it takes maybe an hour each day for them to do all that reconciliation. And we also had customers that are in net 30 terms that wanted to be able to pay with their credit card. And with OpenAR, that is a very good and easy thing to do. It just makes it so much easier on us and the customers. And also, we have some customers that we, for one reason or another, they're not creditworthy or whatever. In our corporate markets, which is our decorated orders, where we put somebody else's logo on one of our products for them to use as an incentive or whatever, or gift, we were asking, because it costs us money up front for those, and we don't want the customer to not pay or back out of that order once they've placed it. Since we're doing special work just for them, we would get a prepayment of half of the amount of the order to cover our costs. And so now we're able to do that with Direct AR. The automation around reconciliation, I've already spoken to that, and the elimination of manual steps, that as well. It's just very advantageous to Fossil and has helped us tremendously, saving time, money, labor, everything. You can go to the next slide now.
All right, thanks, Susie. So let me just give you a brief overview of the solutions that Paymetric offers and what each of those provides. RXI Pay, RXI Secure, and Data Intercept are the three that you'll see on the slide here. RXI Pay is our payment processing solution. So it's the solution that specifically will accept a request to authorize or charge a credit card from your SAP application and reformat that request into what your processor requires, and then it will pass that information off to the processor, receive the response once it's received from the issuing bank of the card, and then push that back into your SAP application, or you could replace SAP with a web store, legacy application, you name it. RXI Pay is the payment processing solution. RXI Secure is the tokenization solution, so that functionality that will take a credit card number and replace it with a surrogate value known as a token. We store the encrypted data in a data vault for RXI Secure in the cloud, so there is no storage of raw or encrypted data in your integrated systems. That's being done in an account for your company that's set up in Paymetric's SaaS environment or in the cloud. And then Data Intercept is a solution that sits on top of RXI Secure. As the name implies, it's intended to intercept data before it's exposed in any of your systems or applications. A very good example of that would be our Data Intercept for e-commerce solution would allow you to integrate that with your web store, whether it's the checkout page or if you allow customers to manage credit card information and retrieve that during future orders. We would intercept the data between the customer browser and Paymetric to tokenize the card so that by the time the order information is submitted back to your web servers and then made available to push into SAP for fulfillment, we tokenize the card number with the customer's browser. The interaction exists between the customer and Paymetric, and that's done to intercept that data to tokenize it prior to it being exposed in a raw or encrypted format in your system. Again, the goal there is to minimize the scope and effort of PCI compliance by hopefully removing that web store, that e-commerce system, from the scope of that audit because it's now not being exposed to raw card numbers. So those are the three main solutions that Paymetric offers. The benefits of an RXI Pay on-demand system are that we can integrate via multiple methods. We have a bespoke or pre-developed interface for SAP applications leveraging SAP's cross-application payment card interface, or CA/PCI. And that interface is used by all of SAP's products that have the ability to manage and accept credit card information as payment. So SAP's ECC system, their CRM system, Biller Direct, their e-commerce solutions, they all leverage that same interface, and SAP is certified against that interface, not any particular release of ECC or CRM, etc. We also have a web service interface that can be used to connect directly to any application or system that can consume that web service. Because it's an on-demand system and Paymetric is hosting the servers and the software solution, we've built our solution and our architecture to be a highly available system. And what that means is that that system is able to be up 99.99% of the time. We have multiple application servers, failover systems, etc., that if you were to install this as an on-premise solution, you typically, depending on the type of company you are, you typically may not put that much time and effort and cost into architecting a system of that scope. On that same note, performance and scalability, we have, as we mentioned, closing in on 500 customers. So certainly we're seeing large volumes of transactions being sent to our system on a minute-by-minute basis. The way we've architected our solution is with that performance in mind and also the ability to scale up as we onboard additional customers. So as our customers' needs and volumes of transactions increase, we can add additional servers to support that load as necessary. We do provide basic reporting skills and reporting capabilities that allow us to give you access to the transactional data that's being passed through your accounts with Paymetric. And we have several certifications in place, mostly with SAP, to ensure that the service we are offering is pre-written and developed for SAP. There's no development work required to interface with the standard SAP credit card interface. There may be some additional coding effort needed in the cases of some business-to-business transactions where SAP's interface does not supply sufficient data to complete those transactions. We may need to enhance it to pass some additional data elements. But suffice it to say, because we have these certifications in place with SAP, we're already developed, we have a developed plug-in for that interface. We do have a multi-tenant or multi-client architecture. All of our customers are running the same version of our system, so we're not dealing with multiple versions where some customers running version 2 and another customer is running version 3. We support all of our customers on the same architecture level. And because SAP, or because Paymetric is handling the maintenance and the backups of our systems, because we are the owners of the hardware and the software environment, we're able to maintain the system on your behalf. So no IT or basis, if you're talking about an SAP person, time is needed on your side to perform backups of the database, to keep the operating system level patched, to ensure that you're running daily or weekly scans for viruses, etc. That's something that Paymetric takes care of on your behalf, and we also take care of all system patches and upgrades to the Paymetric applications. So again, we're going to manage every aspect of that application, the connection to your SAP system, the connection to your banking partner. It's an on-demand or SaaS solution, and you're simply using it as a service. You're not having to worry about maintenance of the servers in the application itself. So in a similar way, with our RXI Secure system, you'd recognize those same benefits of the high available architecture, the failover and the backup systems, Paymetric maintaining the application, etc. Specific to RXI Secure, it's going to help you reduce the scope and cost of a PCI DSS audit. It's going to help you to secure data and extract it out of your systems, be it an SAP database, an e-commerce application, etc. Tokenization is affordable. You're not now needing to account for disk space to store a large volume of encrypted data. You don't need to worry about maintaining different applications for different systems that will encrypt the data in those different systems. So you don't have an encryption solution for SAP, an encryption solution for your web store, an encryption solution for your legacy system or data warehouse. You integrate tokenization with all of them and leverage that benefit across all integrated systems. That does help you reduce the cost of achieving and maintaining PCI compliance because you're now centralizing the function of securing the credit card data. And at the same time, you're eliminating the storage of that cardholder data within your environment, which will help you accelerate the time to compliance with the PCI regulations. Because that information is stored outside of your system, that's going to help increase the security of that data and increase your brand protection. The worst thing that can possibly happen to a merchant who accepts credit cards is that they end up on the Wall Street Journal's front page saying Company X has now been victim of a breach and there were X million numbers of cards stolen from their system, and now they're working with those customers that were affected and their banking partners to mitigate that risk of those card details being used for fraudulent activity. Certainly there's more cost in the damage to your brand than there is in the cost for signing up those customers who are affected with fraud prevention or identity security services. We can work with any enterprise payment acceptance system. It's a web service integration, and Paymetric takes care of all key management and key rotation activities. And that's all done in Paymetric's environment in the cloud, meaning that there will be no system downtime on your side needed when those activities are performed. We don't change the tokens that are stored in your system. We simply will rotate the key and, in some cases, update the encrypted string associated with the token. In other cases, just start generating new tokens with the new keys. And lastly, that external storage of sensitive data means that there's nothing to steal in your merchants or your internal systems as the merchant. So if you have a basis person or a DBA that becomes disgruntled and wants to go into transaction SE16 and look at all of the credit card data stored on sales orders, they could go into transaction SE16 and look at table FPLTC. In standard SAP, they'd be able to find the links to the credit card encrypted data if you're using SAP's encryption, and potentially find the keys on the SAP application servers necessary to decrypt those card numbers. With our system, we give you a token, but there's no way for an end user to access the encryption keys. Those are held in Paymetric SaaS environment. So there's really nothing there of value to steal, and if you took a token from your system and went out to another merchant's e-commerce web store, that token would be useless. It cannot be used in other merchants' web stores. All right, so just to give you an idea of the solution benefits, and I've talked about a lot of this already, but we've broken it down into 5 different sections. Essentially, we're going to help you drive automation. It's much easier to enable SAP and its various products to accept credit card payments automatically and associate those with the sales orders or invoices automatically, rather than you manually having to track, when is it time for me to walk over to the terminal that's on the desk across the room and process that payment, and then walk back and try and apply that in SAP. We'll help you reduce costs. We've talked about mitigating PCI compliance time and effort, but also you've purchased your SAP system licenses and you paid quite a bit of money for that. Let's leverage that and let's reduce the cost, the total cost of ownership for your SAP system by taking advantage of more functionality. Let's reduce the day sales outstanding of your sales orders or your invoices so that you can reduce your time to money. Help get rid of some bad debt by allowing your customers to make payments with a credit card against open invoices that maybe are past due. And if you're a business-to-business customer, you perform business-to-business transactions. For any of your customers that are presenting corporate credit cards or purchase cards to you as their form of payment, it's possible to send what's known in the industry as level 3 data with those transactions and reduce the fees that you pay for individual transactions. Level 3 is really a resubmission or a submission of the same data that's on a customer's invoice to the credit card company so that when they receive their monthly statement, instead of just saying $100 charge to company XYZ on this date, it'll say $100 charge because you purchased 2 widgets for $50 3 widgets that are red for $30, and then 10 other widgets that are green and small for $20. It gives that level of detail that makes it easier for a customer to then take and compare to their purchase orders, or compare to different documents in their system and match those payments to what they've received. Leveraging SaaS is always going to be a benefit. Now you no longer have the application or the systems in your environment that you need to maintain. The cost associated with doing that is eliminated, and it's outsourced to someone like Paymetric, who's taking care of that maintenance in an external environment. We're going to help improve the security with our tokenization solution and reduce the risk and exposure that you would normally have if you were to store that credit card information in your system. And all of that works together to help you achieve compliance with the PCI DSS regulations. And we'll work with you on helping eliminate as many of your systems from scope through the implementation of our solutions as we can. Quickly, and I'll have Susie give you some commentary on this after I finish, but this diagram, although it's a little busy and it's a little technical, is just intended to give you a high-level understanding of the architecture that a particular merchant may have when they're integrating our system. So you'll see that we have the merchant's environment here in the system here in the big box. Within it, we're listing what Fossil has in place. So they have an SAP ERP system with a sales and distribution and a financial accounting system. And they may have a website as well, which Fossil does. And outside of that box, you'll see the Paymetric environment where we have the RXI Secure and RXI Pay applications. And then those are connected to the processor, either their gateway or processing partner. Fossil is using, as we mentioned before, First Data and Lonaris as their processing partners. Here in the middle, between the two, you'll notice a little box that's labeled the Paymetric PAS, P-A-S, or Paymetric Adapter for SAP. That interface that SAP has designed for credit card processing, that's referred to as the Cross-Application Payment Card Interface, it's a TCP/IP RFC interface. The Paymetric SaaS environment leverages web services, so we need a way to convert the SAP messages to web services so that they can be transmitted out to the Paymetric environment. And we do this with this little adapter, this application we call the PAS server. That's an application that would be installed either on a virtual machine or on a physical server by itself, or maybe co-located with a Taxware or Vertex type application. There is no database. It's really just a data mapper and communication facilitator. But that allows the transaction requests coming from SAP's TCP/IP RFC interface to be converted to web services and sent to your account with Paymetric in our SaaS environment. For a website, because it can consume a web service call directly, you'll notice it makes a direct connection to the Paymetric SaaS environment. Any transaction requests coming from the website do not go through that Paymetric adapter. And then up at the top, you'll notice data intercept for e-commerce is intentionally placed outside the merchant environment. And that's because to intercept the credit card data, we do that with the customer's browser. So as they're entering those details for payment in their browser on their system, when they hit submit or pay now or check out, whatever you choose to label that button, immediately that information is captured and sent from the web store out to Paymetric's environment. We tokenize it and return it so that that can then be passed to the merchant's web systems behind the scenes and eventually into SAP. But that capture tokenizes the card information prior to any of that being exposed within the merchant environment. All right, actually I'll go back because I was going to ask Susie, is there anything in particular about this slide or the architecture at Fossil that you'd like to add to this before I move on?
Well, I just want to mention we have both types of customers. We have B2B and B2C that we're using with Paymetric. So, I mean, this diagram pretty well explains the processes, but whenever we have a B2B customer, the sales rep can go through our web interface, and like I said before, and select the payment card when they're entering the order. Once they save the order, they'll know right away whether it's been approved or declined. On the website, they can, if the customer calls in and gives their credit card information, right now it's still on a piece of paper that's locked up in a secure cabinet, but we're very much considering adding this window that Paymetric has that they can tokenize it immediately when the customer calls in. They can just put their card number in that little window, and it will give them back the token. So then all the processes from then on will have only the token in it, and you don't have to worry about storing a piece of paper any longer. So that's pretty much all I have to say. And this system works really well.
Very good. So let me move on, and we'll talk about some of our value-added solutions, and I'll let you give us some insight into how you use this at Fossil today as well. We've broken this up into 3 different sections where inside of SAP we've added some enhanced reporting. So Paymetric can provide some ABAP-based reports that we would give you a transport so they can be imported into your system. And they read the same database tables that SAP standard reports do. There's no Z tables that Paymetric introduces, but we're taking that information out of the SAP tables and displaying it in ways that no standard SAP report does to give you better visibility to the credit card data within your system, or the payment information rather in your system. So there's those enhanced reports. We talked briefly about level 3, where if you are able to send that additional data for your business-to-business transactions where a customer is presenting a corporate card, you could recognize a good discount or savings in your interchange fees that you're paying. And that does require some custom mapping of data in the SAP credit card interface, because they don't send enough data by default for qualification of level 3 with any given processing partner. So there's some custom data mapping that's always required to support level 3. And then finally, receivables management. You've also heard Susie refer to Open AR and Direct AR. There's also an Auto AR. Each of those are solutions that allow you to process payments with a credit card directly in the financial module, rather than the standard SAP way of accepting a credit card during the sales order creation process. A lot of times the OpenAR solution is used for collections of invoices that are past due. Direct AR is more of a down payment type feature where you would accept a payment but not associate it quite yet with any existing invoice or open item on the customer's account. So Susie, I'll pause here and let you add any comments here you'd like.
Okay, we do have on the receivables management portion, on the OpenAR, we use that not only for collecting past dues, but we just have some customers for convenience who want to pay their net 30 invoices with a credit card, just because, say they only have a $5,000 credit limit and they're knocking up against it, and now it's starting peak season and they need more inventory, so they'll just use that to pay so they can get shipped additional orders. The level 3 processing, we would consider it, but there's so much information that you have to provide to get that, including the CVV code that's on the back of the credit card. You cannot store that CVV code because that would be non-PCI compliant. And so we've chosen not to go that route because we don't want to have to ask our customer every time, what's the CVV code on your card? And plus there's other additional information you have to send to the processors to get the level 3. But to get to level 2 is usually pretty easy. Enhanced reporting, our AR and Treasury teams are looking, they use some of these reports, the standard ones right now, but they're talking about enhanced reports that we can get out of here that will help them analyze better our sales history and the credit card business and everything else. So all of these are good functionalities that Paymetric provides, and I would highly recommend them.
All right, thank you. So at this point, let's talk about now, and I'll turn this over to you again, Susie, but talk about some of the key learnings that you've had or Fossil has had throughout the process of implementing an automated and secure payment processing solution with Paymetric.
Okay, the very most critical piece of advice I can give you is to make sure you have thoroughly educated yourself about your payments, about your bank processes, about when there's quiet periods with them as well as with Paymetric. You need to know that they do have blackout periods where you cannot do anything. So if you're trying to implement something new around the first of the year, the bank is generally going to say no because they are in a lockdown for year-end processes for themselves. So you want to make sure you learn about all the stuff up front so you can plan out your implementation of Paymetric. We also implemented in 2 phases. We intended to implement it all together. We started in spring of 2009, and then as we got more and more into it, we realized that we were getting too close to our peak season start, and we were not going to be able to implement it during peak season. So we made a decision that we would do it in 2 phases. We would first tokenize the cards and get Visa off our backs, and then we would implement the other functionality of Paymetric. I think in hindsight it would have been much better had we been able to do it all together, but here at Fossil we are very adamant about users, the business users that are involved with all these processes have to thoroughly test and sign off on anything before we can move it to production. And based on all the stuff since we did tokenize in January of 2010, and that's year-end processing for all the AR and Treasury at that time, there was no way they had time to do testing back then. So we usually have to wait at least until the second quarter or third quarter before we can do anything where it involves accounting, testing, and signing off on new processes. So, I mean, every business is different. Your peak season may be different than ours. Since we are into consumer goods, of course, our peak season is the last part of the year, last 4 months of the year. And yours may not be like that, but it's just something to always consider. You want to make sure you implement when it's not close to your peak season or in your peak season because there's too much involved to worry about that. And you want to do very thorough testing with your processors to make sure, because when we were doing our testing and everything, we were doing fine with all the stuff with First Data, and we were getting no response from Moneris. And then finally we realized the connection, there was an issue with the connection to Moneris. So we got that fixed. And once we got that fixed, we were able to test it, and everything worked fine. And just so you know, we only take Visa, MasterCard in Canada. We do not take American Express and Discover. We take all 4 cards in the United States. But that helped a little bit with Canada. But still, just you've got to be sure to perform thorough testing to make sure there's no glitches before you are ready to go live. I guess you can go to the next one. Okay. And this is what we realized. Because of our implementation, we had greatly reduced cost. We, number one, avoided those fines from Visa. Our costs, our administrative costs went way down. Our PCI costs, our Treasury, cash application costs, all that was so very substantial, because you're talking about when you can take one person that's spending all their time doing applying payments for credit cards. And now, instead of it taking them all week to do their job, it takes them an hour a day. So now you can give them new responsibilities. So that helps your business. We have a reduced risk. We don't have to worry about someone hacking in our system and getting our customers' credit card information. The automation of accounts receivables, that is so much better. Simplified reconciliation. It is so helpful to our treasury team to be able to sit there and go into RXI Pay and be able to get all the information they need and not have to call people and chase around and try to get data from whoever to be able to offset payments against charges. And the elimination of manual steps and improved customer service are very, traumatic, or dramatic, I should say. Our customer care department has had greatly improved scores from our customers because there's less manual steps for them. They're able to process things faster. Even for our small stores, all that's running much faster. Shipments are getting shipped sooner because it doesn't take as long to get the cards approved, and it just has greatly improved a lot of all these processes. Our future enhancements and ongoing challenges, we are considering that right now on fossil.com, our customers enter their credit card information. Instead of them having to do that, we would implement the tokenizer in our .com website so that when they enter their card, it comes back with the token, and we send the token to CyberSource and no credit card information. We also are looking at implementing this in Europe and Asia in the future. First, it would be Europe. The things we have to deal with, there's different kinds of payment methods rather than being immediate payments. Some of these in Europe, they have where you have direct bill and all these other kind of payment methods that we don't use in the United States. So there's challenges involved, but it is something we are seriously looking at. We also want to, Paymetric has come out with a new, or is coming out in the next couple of months, a new DI in those SAP GUI so that you don't have to log into another system. On your SAP screen, you will have a little window that you will just be able to go in and get your token immediately. So if someone calls in to our customer care center and they give them their credit card number for an order, they can just enter the card, give back the token. There's no paper involved. Nowhere's that credit card written down. So there's no credit card information to have to store or worry about. It's all tokenized and safe and secure, and then it just goes on and it gets processed from there. We are interested in implementing a new web AR solution that Paymetric has told me about in the last couple of weeks, where our Net 30 customers would have a little website to go to, and they would be able to pull up their invoices and make payments on their open AR. This is a really good product that Paymetric is working on to offer to the customers. It sounds really great because then the customers can pay anytime. They don't have to worry about, is Fossil open right now? If they want to go online at midnight and pick the invoices they want to pay and pay by credit card, they can do it. And our one ongoing challenge that we have is working with Moneris because they are not very responsive. First Data is great working with them here in the United States, but with Moneris, it has its challenges. So that is what I've got to say. Eric, you want to take over now?
All right. Yeah, so, and actually the next two slides are both why would you choose to go with Paymetric. And so, Susie, I think the items on this slide were the feedback that we received from you on why Fossil chose Paymetric. Do you mind going through these real quick?
Yes, well, as I said, we were referred to 3 different organizations to become PCI compliant, and we decided after vetting all 3 that Paymetric was the best. It was the largest one. They'd been in business for quite some time, and we got a lot of good feedback when we were researching it. They have a lot of expertise. They're very professional. Their support team is really good, and it's just like we have our own service desk here at Fossil. Well, they have a support desk, so when you have an issue or a question or whatever, not only, just like on SAP OSS, they have knowledge transfer documents that you can go there and research, and you also, if you have an issue or a question, like I said, you can put in a ticket and they get back with you, and they may need to get more information or whatever, but sometimes, most of the times, in fact, they have an answer right away. And we've had a really good relationship with them, especially Eric is a great person, and he is very knowledgeable about this process, and he, of course, is one of the people that wrote this program, so he should know it, but Paymetric has given us really good support. We were having an issue, and I was getting kind of like the runaround from SAP, and when I would contact Paymetric, they would say, well, contact SAP, and SAP would say, well, contact Paymetric. So I went out on a forum, and I posted what my issue was, and Eric got back with me, and we got it fixed right away. That's how good the support is. The senior VP of the company is responding to people's issues and helping them get them fixed ASAP. So what higher recommendation can you have than that?
Well, thank you, Susie. So very much appreciate that. And the reasons that we hope you will consider using Paymetric as well, we've broken these into 6 sections, are performance, and looks like this slide's a little out of date. Close to 500 of the world's most respected brands have leveraged our solutions over about the past 12 years now. And as Susie alluded to, with our support desk, with our consulting partners, with our internal employees, we have expertise in the hundreds of man years about payment processing in general, but also payment processing within an SAP environment. And that gives us credibility in the form of the awards that we have won, either from SAP or from other industry sections regarding our solutions and the functionality that they provide for this particular niche market of payment processing. We're constantly trying to innovate and come out with new solutions that will help our customers. Susie mentioned the data intercept for SAP and data intercept for e-commerce solutions. We're constantly trying to keep up to date with the markets and anticipate what new features and functions our customers will be looking for, and we solicit requests from our customers on what they're looking for and what functionality they would like to see us add in the future. We think there's a great value in an on-demand solution where Paymetric takes on the burden of support and maintenance of the applications more so than you would if it was an on-premise application. And then finally, the service that Susie just mentioned, we do have a 24/7 support desk. We have a customer portal with a knowledge base where you can log on and see questions that have been answered for other customers and give you general feedback on how to address those issues if you're experiencing them in your SAP system as well. That service is important to us. We have a dedicated support team that does nothing but provide support services. They're not consultants. They're not also selling. They're not also developing the product. They are dedicated solely to the support of our services within your environment. So that ends the webinar. It looks like we took almost the entire time. If you do have questions and you want to follow up with us later, here's our contact information, and I'm going to open up the chat box here to see if we do have any questions. So Susie, it looks like we have a couple. Let me just address the first one here to you. Someone asked, does Fossil still have to comply with PCI even though they've implemented Paymetric solutions, albeit maybe on a lesser level?
Oh, yes, we have PCI auditors that come and they validate that we are still PCI compliant. Yes.
Okay. And I would answer it the same way. Even implementing our solutions, even though we address the security of the credit card number with RXI Secure and we take that information out of your system, as I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, there are things that we simply can't do that are required by PCI, such as segregation of duties and ensuring that your firewalls are secure and your operating systems are updated to the latest patches. So you as a merchant will always be responsible ultimately for your PCI compliant status. Paymetric solutions are intended to help you minimize the amount of work, effort, and cost it takes to prove that compliance. Next question was, again to you, Susie, does Fossil check the address and CVV codes when you perform authorizations?
We check the address, but not the CVV.
Okay. And just as a general description of what those are, AVS, or Address Verification Service, means that when you send an authorization, you're sending typically the billing address for that customer's account, and SAP pulls that from the payer partner address. You can send that address, and your bank will let you know if that matches where the customer's monthly billing statement is sent. You can also capture the CVV or the 3-digit security code on the back of a Visa or MasterCard or the 4-digit code on the front of an American Express, send those out, and get a response as to whether or not it matches. Both of those are pretty low-tech security fraud prevention tools that you can use, but SAP supports it. CVV, as Susie mentioned, they're not capturing that. That's not a required field. We do recommend that you capture it if possible, but it is not a required field.
Right. If you had a place to store it, but you can store it because that would make you non-PCI compliant. And because we just don't want to aggravate our customers by asking them for the CVV every time they place an order, we made a conscious decision not to require that.
And I think you will in general see that required more commonly on an e-commerce site rather than when you're calling into a call center. But suffice it to say, SAP can support it if you want to send it. Paymetric can support it, as can your processor.
Right, because in our e-com we do require it, just not in our B2B business or our call-in business.
All right, so I think that brings us to the end of the webinar. If you do have additional questions, we did show the email addresses for both Susie and myself. Feel free to send those on to us. Susie, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your experience from the perspective of Fossil implementing this solution. Very much appreciate that. Appreciate everyone's attendance, and have a great day.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.